So let's take a look at forms and how we can interact with forms through the DOM, or at least the form elements. So let me touch an index.html page. Let's open this up in our browser. And let's put a little code in here. So the only thing I'm going to do here is actually put in a head and a body tag, and we'll put in one form here on the page. So we'll have this form, and within this form, let's just put an input field. And for the input field, let's specify that it's got a name, and for the name, let's just say we're going to capture a property called foo. So just by doing this, if I end up refreshing this page, I'll see my input field here. Let's make it a little bit bigger here by just saying, hey, look, if you're an input field, let's give you a height of 3M, and let's actually put this inside of a style tag. And move this over a little bit. Okay, so we're a little bit bigger here. See the form field here. So the first thing to realize here is that forms actually have some default behavior. What does that mean? Well, if I go over here and I type something in the form field and I hit the enter key, you'll notice that what happens is I actually get a full page refresh. This page ends up reloading. I actually lost what was in the form field, but it's showing up here. And it's showing up here really in a format that's called URL encoded data. In fact, if I put a space here and hit enter, we'll see that this actually gets encoded. So in essence, we can end up making a request to the server. Now, we don't have any servers here. All I'm pointing out is that there is this default behavior for forms. So if there is an input field, and then there's one input field, and you hit the enter key, this is the behavior that you end up getting. Just as an aside here, if I was to also go over here and put in a button, maybe the button is going to be saved. So maybe I'm simulating something in the browser where I'm going to have an input field when I end up getting that data. Maybe I'm going to end up taking that data, put it into some collection, and I'll end up displaying it. And so now, if I do this, I hit enter, I get this default behavior. Not only that, the save button will actually do the same thing. So by default, a button or an input field, when I end up hitting the enter key, and I think that the situation changes a little bit if I have more than one input field. I think there's a default behavior. Actually, yeah, no matter which one you hit, the enter key by default is going to end up attempting to submit the form. And this might not be the behavior that we want to have. So the first thing that I'm going to end up doing is dealing with the default behavior. The way that I'm going to end up doing this is by putting a script tag on our page. Now, again, we could put this in a separate file, okay, but just to get this done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to specify document query selector, and I'm going to grab my form. So one of the events that I can subscribe to, so the form has events that I can subscribe to, and I'm going to add an event listener for submit. So a form is capable of submitting, and the default behavior when a form ends up submitting is to actually submit the form. It actually submits it, refreshes the page. There's no server that I'm interacting with, so there's not that much I could end up doing here. But if I really want to avoid this behavior and I don't want to have this happen, what I can do is I can say, hey, look, I want to subscribe to this event, and I want this event object that's here. I get past this event object, which is helpful because I could find out any number of things, but what I really want to find out here is I really want to just prevent what is the default behavior. And so what this allows me to do, and you could see it here, let's go back to this page, let me refresh. So now if I type this in, I hit the enter key, you don't end up seeing that default behavior. And even if I end up clicking the Save button, you don't end up seeing it. But if I was to go over here, and I've got my console open, if I was just building something to store things in the memory of the browser, and I was going to maybe display them on a list, I might want to do something here. And so now, if I type in hello world, and either I hit enter or I click on the save button, I could end up doing that. So all I'm getting at there is that there is default behavior for elements that are on the page, and by adding event handlers at the appropriate point in time, or adding the event handler for specific events, I really should say, you get to prevent that default behavior.